Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
And away we go. Can you hear me, Chip?
Yes, I hear you loud and clear.
My computer's goofed up here. Hold on a second here. I'm going to turn this up. See, I'm an old guy trying to...
I hear you loud and clear,
Hold on
Judley.
a second here. Hold on a second. Okay, there we go.
The two old guys in technology.
It was too loud. It was too quiet. I couldn't decide. It's fine now. It's fine now. It's fixed. Just two old guys. I goofed up. It's my fault. But we are here to talk about, of course, the Vikings Purple Access. And this is actually... I sat by you at the Kwesi Adofo-Mensah press conference on Wednesday. In fact, it was a murderer's row. It was Seifert in front of us, Mark Craig behind us. You talk about old people,
That's
gray
right.
hairs.
The dinosaurs on the beat were on one side.
Exactly right. And we listened to Kwesi answer a ton of questions on J.J. McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers, his contract. And it was a type of thing where back in the day, back in the Access Viking Star Tribune day, we would have run to the nearest camera.
Sprinted to
we would have just made our way, and we would have produced content. That was really interesting, I thought, Chip.
Unexpectedly interesting. I didn't know what we were going to get, to be honest with you, Judd.
Me neither.
And it was two topics. Rodgers and contract, and I don't know if they thought or expected to be that much dialogue about it, but it confirmed what a lot of reporting has gone on about their interest and dialogue with Rodgers. I thought it was interesting that Kwesi said essentially this was Kevin O'Connell's deal. Like he has a relationship with Rodgers, and he.
Get it off my table.
I think he actually said looped in at one point. Was that the quote? Like he got or brought in after
He said yes. He said at one point it's a thrill to be involved. Like they're like, okay, you can come in and listen to Aaron for a while.
Yeah. So it's Judd. You and I lived through the summer of 2009, the summer of 2010.
Yes.
As you said, maybe we're scarred by that. The Brett Favre watch and the back and forth and lack of clarity and lack of finality to it until it was. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why our antennas go up when Kwesi uses qualifiers like at this moment and right now.
Yep. I'm okay. So let's unpack this, okay? Because I did text you last night because I saw some, and a lot of the stories that originated were news stories, not columns. So in that case, the writer is not supposed to like weigh in. But I also, in going through them, thought that in some cases, not all, the Aaron Rodgers angle was sold short. Like, yes, Kwesi is saying he wants that it's the desire to have McCarthy be the starting QB. That's obvious. But like you just said, too, there were a ton of qualifiers. If you go back and read the stuff when we did get access in the infamous summer of 2009, there were a ton of qualifiers. And I guess the three things that come to mind are this. One, good on Kwesi, because he was about as upfront as you could be. Like he could have said, I can't talk about it. I'm sorry. It's an internal thing. No, in which he would have been criticized. But he didn't. He very much said, and you nailed it. I thought the same thing too. This is very much an O'Connell thing. So those are the first two thoughts that come to my mind. And the last is this. Rodgers, who I think is a very interesting cat, if that's the nicest way to put it, appears to be stealing the Favre playbook.
Yeah. And
he is, until he signs with Pittsburgh, because if he says I'm going to retire, I don't trust him. Until he signs with Pittsburgh, I am in no way, shape, or form convinced that this is dead.
Because Kwesi said things can always change.
Yeah.
He was asked how they left it, and it's like they feel good about their room right now. Well, I don't buy that because they haven't signed another veteran backup. So
it's not a room even.
They're not. Yeah, it's two guys. They're
it's
not
just
going
two
into
guys.
the.
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah. What'd
How are
you do
you?
today?
How are you? Want coffee?
They're not going into training camp with JJ McCarthy and Brett Rippon.
No.
As the only two options. And so they're going to add somebody, whether it's Flacco, whether it's Rodgers, whether it's someone else. They're going to add another guy. But you're right in terms of still in the playbook, because why isn't he signed somewhere?
Right.
Like, what he's waiting on something. Like, what is he waiting on? Like, is he waiting on, does he want to keep an organization in suspense? Does he really need this time to figure out if he wants to continue to play? Is he doing a darkness retreat? Like, what is the holdup for him signing? Is it some calculation where a team will get compensatory picks? Is it something with their salary? I don't know. Like, what is at play here? But the fact that he hasn't, this is not just any old player. Like, this is,
yes.
This is not like how are we going to squeeze someone on their salary cap. This is Aaron Rodgers. And so, and Seifert brought this up to Kwesi, and it's true. It's like, you're not bringing Aaron Rodgers here to say, okay, you're going to be in a quarterback competition with JJ McCarthy. Like, that ain't happening. Like, if he's coming here with the idea that he's going to be the starter. And so, I don't know. It's the fact that, and I understand, GMs and coaches don't like to talk in absolutes, and because the NFL, weird things happen. So I understand, I guess, that you won't close the door completely and say we're moving on. Because, just the fact that Rodgers has not signed with Pittsburgh, because I think that's the only option left, correct? Well, two options.
Yeah.
You either retire or you sign with Pittsburgh.
Right now, yes. Yes, for starting jobs, yes.
So if he's waiting out for, and I agree with you, Judd, even if he says he's retired, if he hasn't filed the papers, he's not retired.
Correct.
We've seen that. And so
yep.
It's, I keep going back to, Judd, like, what would be O'Connell's motivation, knowing that if this thing goes really south, if he did it and it goes south, that is going to be the heat he would catch for that. I understand the best case scenario why you would do it. Like, if you found the fountain of youth and it's Aaron Rodgers from 7 years ago, and you get the 09 Favre version this year with the team that's built to win. I understand it, but I think there's a greater likelihood that you get the 2010 version.
I agree completely. And
then we say, why the hell did you do this when you have a guy that you drafted number 10 overall?
That's the thing about this. So last week, Rodgers went to Pittsburgh and spent 6 hours with them, and he didn't sign.
Yeah.
So that, to me, indicates that he is going to hang loose until the Vikings come open, or until he is clearly trying to manipulate the situation as much as possible. I don't like the fact that this feels like, because remember, in the Favre case, it was Rosenfels and T-Jack.
Yeah.
And so Favre hung loose, and I mean, went as far as to call Brad at one point in July and say, I'm done. He didn't want to come to Mankato, so he said, I'm done. I'm not going to come. But the Vikings were desperate. And I don't feel like this franchise should reek of the desperation. And I'm with you. We don't know which Rodgers you're going to get, but there's a chance that he's just broken down. He tore his Achilles 2 years ago, has not played particularly well. Like, the Packers cut bait. So
he's 41, and he's 41.
He's going to be 42 in December, and it's close in age, but in pro sports, it's a big gap. Brett Favre was 39 when he signed here, and he turned 40 in October of 2009. Like, that's a big difference as far as things go. And we saw that in Brett in 2010. But I think one of the main sticking points I have is, I feel like we're acting like the Vikings, and I feel like the Vikings are doing the same by leaving the door open, Chip. I feel like we're acting like Aaron Rodgers. If you can get him, you should get. We have no idea. Like, I would be much more comfortable if they would go get another QB. I quite frankly might look to trade for a backup that O'Connell likes, because this is acting like you're going to get another Favre 2009, and what you said, I think, is reflects what I think, which is this very, very well could be 2010.
And you could say in 09, when you look at that roster, they were desperate for a quarterback.
Yes.
Well, you used the highest draft pick on a quarterback ever in your franchise history last year. Why would you be desperate? Like, I'd be desperate to learn what this kid can do. Like, desperate to get him on the field. I don't know.
It feels like they're going to make a judgment though at some point in time, and Aaron's going to continue to like hang out there, right? But yeah. I also don't. It's one thing when Favre basically says, "Oh, Sage and T-Jack, they're not playing well, huh? I'll come in and save the day." I don't like this premonition I've got that Rodgers is going to do that to McCarthy. Like, to me, I don't want a guy in the building who's like, well, the guy couldn't handle it, so I'm here. Like, to me is like you have so much in McCarthy invested, seeing if he fails and then taking a chance on a guy who still thinks he's great but is not. I don't like how this is playing out.
Well, and the other thing, we keep talking about, why hasn't Rodgers signed? Why haven't the Vikings signed someone else?
Well, the comp pick thing is real. If they're going to sign,
I guess that's true. If they're going to wait, and maybe
Flacco's a comp pick guy. Oh no, like if you didn't get released, which Aaron did, but if you didn't get released, you would sign after the draft because the comp pick formula is dead for that period. Then
whatever that date is, 3 days after a draft or whatever it is. Yeah, so maybe they said, hey, whatever the date is after the draft, so we keep our comp picks. We're signing Joe Flacco, or we're signing whoever. And Rodgers is not part of the equation. Maybe they really have moved on, but the way, Kwesi in the context that we're happy where they are right now and at this moment, and I don't know, because it was in the context of Rodgers, and that wasn't in the context of Flacco or someone else. I mean, it was, I don't know, but I it's clearly, he made the point that O'Connell has known Rodgers for years. They've had a relationship for years. They've had a good rapport, and that he talked to him. And anytime, you have a Hall of Fame guy, you have to do, consider it. So for the people that thought this was media driven and there's nothing to it, I think that was put to bed yesterday. I mean, they clearly have had some pretty meaningful discussions about it.
Yep. And I got some pushback because, Kwesi's thing was, well, you can't declare something to be dead in my business. So, but on Aaron Rodgers, I object. I think you could easily say, we're not going there. Like, we've talked about it internally. We've decided we're not going there. Like,
and that's not insulting to him. It's not.
Well, and he's a special case. Like, you're right. He is a very special case. It's not like you're closing the door on a guy who you might sign in 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just very weird.
You could just say at this time, we just felt like it was not the right fit.
Yeah. And we'll be getting another quarterback.
Yeah, we're getting another quarterback. I mean,
but you can close the door completely.
Yeah, it's clear that he uses we're still evaluating options. I mean, they're waiting for make sure they keep their compensatory pick.
Right.
So, but I didn't expect to get that much Rodgers.
No.
Answers from Kwesi. Questions, yes, but the answers, it was more than I expected.
Well, and I think that the questions kept up because he kept answering them. And I give him credit there because, I mean,
absolutely.
If he had said, I'm not going to talk about this, we all would have been like, you haven't talked in a bleeping month and stuff. So good on him. But I did think it was also extremely intriguing that he definitely drew a line of, this is Kevin's baby and this is Kevin's baby, which sets up Kevin for a very interesting presser next week in Florida, right?
Well, it has to be. Like, to me, they could have been talking about Aaron Rodgers or whoever. Kwesi is not doing anything quarterback related on his own. Like, that's that position more than anything. That's Kevin O'Connell. Whatever Kevin O'Connell wants, that's what is going to happen, because that's his. And Kwesi always says that's his expertise. That's what he knows, and so he's going to take his cues from what Kevin says. So, of course, he has a relationship, so he's going to follow whatever kind of path that Kevin takes on the quarterback spot.
Yeah. But I am guessing Aaron does not sign with Pittsburgh.
I don't think.
I think he's going to hang out, and I think he might announce, I'm not going to play. And then if McCarthy has, struggles or something in camp, he's going to try. I don't know that the Vikings will bite, but I think he's going to definitely try to get that last Farvinian step in.
So you think, yeah.
Holman Field, here he comes.
Imagine? Yeah, could you imagine?
It's the Vikings, so I can.
But you think it's Vikings or retirement for him?
Yes. I think he's decided. Unless someone else gets hurt and opens up and they sign him and they're really good.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to Pittsburgh.
That's what I think.
Chipper.
Yeah, and I wonder why, if he just feels like they're not as close as they think. See, my thought was he will sit out, whether it's the Vikings or whatever, and wait for a situation with a contender to open up that, hey, we need we need a quarterback right now because we're a team that wants to contend. So you could be right. I mean, he could just stay in shape, but when we think about like what O'Connell's talked about, culture and all that, to bring that circus into your building, and whether Aaron Rodgers was the best of teammate, best version, all in, you're still going to have a million eyeballs on you and waiting for something to go wrong, and it's just
Yep.
I just don't know that the upside is there. I don't know that Rodgers has enough. I don't know physically like how much. Like if you put him in Kevin O'Connell's offense, is he going to be great? Potentially, probably, maybe. I don't know.
And for how long? He's 41.
Yeah,
like that's a lot to ask.
Do I think he'd get along in the locker room? Yeah, because you have Harrison Smith and all these veterans that have brought in a lot of guys. Nobody kind of has his persona or personality, but I think it's a locker room that's really tight knit and chemistry's there. So I don't necessarily worry about so much that, although it's Rodgers and he has a way of wanting to do things his way on the field, in terms of how the offense run. I'd be curious how that worked with O'Connell.
Yep. And LaFleur was, Matt is a really good coach. And Aaron had some definite, now if I get, and that's the question, would O'Connell cede a lot of control to Rodgers? But if he does that, that's a really dicey, slippery slope then, because McCarthy sees that. And now, I just feel like the Vikings, 2009 was a ton of fun. I'll start with that. The Favre thing that year,
my favorite team I've covered in sports.
Agreed, completely. And going to work was not simple because it was busy, but it was just so much fun. But that team was by nature dysfunctional. This team is not dysfunctional. This organization has not been dysfunctional. So
was Schism 09 or 010?
9.
Yeah.
No, Schism was that some of Jackson's teammates were very upset that they would consider bringing Brett Favre in. And Schefter reported it, and I was at the combine, and Ziggy ran up to Schefter and said something about
there's no schism.
What's a schism now? But this franchise is in a very different place too. And I would call it. I think this is probably the most stable in my time covering this team, or not. Probably it is that I've ever seen it stable. Right?
For sure. But I also keep going back to. You drafted a quarterback number 10 overall. Like you think you did that because you think this kid could be great.
Correct.
Don't you want to see?
Yes.
Don't you want to see if that's true?
Well, but are you going to panic? Like what's the threshold too? If he has a bad preseason game, like if he has a bad first 2 weeks of training camp, so I guess the questions for O'Connell, which I have no idea if he'll go near, and he probably won't, is what is the threshold here? And if you don't think McCarthy is the guy at some point, do you, back to your point, really think that a 41-year-old is just going to step in and magically run the show? Because he's not coming to, at this point in time, he's not, he's not going to be at the off-season camps. There's just a lot of really interesting questions, which transitions to the next one too. What did you make of the secondary topic, but still important? Kwesi's contract, because we've been talking about this. He's going into the last year. This is his last draft on his current 4-year contract. I left there more uncertain about his future than I arrived.
Well, that's my dad always used to say I was born at night, but was it last night? Something's going on, right?
It sure feels like it.
Like we asked Kwesi at the season-ending press conference. Was it 3 days after the season?
Rams lost it.
And he had talked about that he had conversations already with ownership, and I think we all walked out there saying, okay, this thing will be done along with O'Connell's in a week, or a few days. And here we are, was it 2 months later, 2.5 months later, and still nothing? Now Kwesi downplayed it and said he doesn't think about it. He doesn't wake up thinking about it. He's too busy. And maybe some of that's true. But I asked him that question. I was like, does it feel weird that you have a 1 year left on your contract and you're making these plans for the future and draft and free agency and you're planning far out? And, he was pretty terse about like, hey, if you know me, I'm not going to have that bleed into my work and like my commitment and all that. It's like, I plan to be here, but it's like, I don't know what the future holds. Like, is this going to get done? I thought it'd be done way before this. So that leads me to believe something's going on.
And it feels like something we're trying to guess at, but I think we're missing entirely. And I don't know what, because we don't know how the building operates.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's not that the Wilfs are going to judge at some point in time the 2025 draft, right? Like,
that's it.
These guys look good in August. Extension. It's something that we aren't seeing. And this goes back to, I think I talked with you about this about a month ago. I don't think we know how they run. Like, he's an analytically driven guy from Wall Street. Like, it's not Rick Spielman where you're sort of like, okay, he gets the blame for this, he gets the credit for this, and we know exactly what, It feels like the way that the Vikings run is unique enough that if there's an audit of Kwesi going on, it's not something that we really can guess at.
Well, that's the thing. I've heard people say, well, maybe the Wolves are going to wait and see how the draft goes. Well, what's that going to tell you? We have no idea. Like, well, that's it. It's like, if you're waiting until immediately after the draft, we have no idea if that draft class is going to be any good for several years. So that one doesn't fly with me. You're right. I don't know because Kwesi was such a different hire in terms of his background and not being a football guy and being a Wall Street broker, and that, maybe the word you used, audit. Maybe they're trying to figure out, okay, how's this working behind the scenes? And I mean, they're winning, and obviously the drafts haven't been good. Free agency has gone well. Who you giving?
They love the coach.
They love the coach, obviously. I don't know. I don't buy the premise of, we just haven't got around to it yet. No. I don't buy that. I mean, that's not realistic when you know how NFL teams operate in terms of optics and having stability and continuity in terms of their decision makers more than 1 year, So will Kwesi be willing to just play this out for 1 year on a lame duck year?
Boy, I mean, maybe he is. Are they? If they make a decision, has O'Connell's power now, gone up quite a bit with his extension? Like that's the thing is, unlike players, there's very few leaks when it comes to coaches, GMs. We got ballparks on contracts, but we don't know money, and we certainly don't know power. I mean, don't forget, I think it was in the 2010 before he got fired when Childress in the conference call at the time with the opposing reporters in Detroit said, I've got control of the 53. That had never been reported. That hadn't been out there. That was unknown. Like that's the type of thing that, okay. So Spielman was his lackey at the time. So, but I'm saying, we don't know. Did O'Connell get more control? It's Kwesi not, because there just doesn't, there doesn't seem to be a reason not to extend him unless the reason is something that we're just not seeing, and it's not the ordinary run of the mill type GM thing because he's a football guy.
And it shouldn't take this long. Like
No.
if you were absolutely committed to, now maybe it's term. Maybe they see their idea definition of maybe he wants longer term than they're willing to go. Could be that. Could be a hold up on term. I don't know, but something's holding it up, and it's not. We're doing free agency. I mean, they got Kevin O'Connell done. I mean, pretty quickly.
Right. Yes.
So that one was easier, obviously, than Kwesi because of. I mean, quite honestly, the draft. I mean, it's hard to get around. If you're his agent, it's hard to get around. The drafts have just not been good. You can the teams had success, and yes, the free agents last year were great. Yes, I think this free agent class so far this year on paper looks like a win.
Right.
But the draft part is.
Oh, absolutely. And the other thing that's at least intriguing is he is not a football guy.
Yeah.
Like if.
But they knew that going in. Like
right. No, but I'm saying from his end. Like,
oh yeah.
If Rick Spielman, his life is football. He has to work in football. There's no other avenue for Rick. Kwesi's got a very large portrait of things.
Well, that's
and so he's got some control here too. If he says, you know what, not what I really thought. X, Y, and Z is taking precedence. This is not the lifestyle I want. Like, because Chipper, we both know this. If you are like a GM or a coach or hell, an assistant coach, their lives are nothing but football.
It's consuming.
Yes,
consuming.
But it's not conducive. It's not conducive to a healthy lifestyle. So like there's, again, I guess I'm grasping at straws here because I think we're missing something that we just don't know about because we're football people, like we cover football and we think that they're all football guys and Kwesi's really not, which is, again, they took a chance. In some ways it's worked for sure. But, if this was based on one thing, let's just say, the drafts have not been great, but this is based on in 3 years, how many football games have you won? Well, 13 year one. Year 2 was going to go okay until Kirk
the injuries
got hurt, and then 14 games. So, like, if this was based on wins, that contract extension probably gets done the same day O'Connell's does.
Yeah, you're right. That's why I said born not last night. Just something doesn't feel right in terms of the timing because it just. I think we all were under assumption that this would happen quickly right after season, and then you move on to the off season and do all that, and it hasn't. Yep. In fact, here they are now starting draft prep, and it's still a talker. It just makes you wonder, like, what is really happening here?
Yeah, and he did take a little bit of umbrage to your question, but your question was very fair, which is do you if you are the Wilfs and you're not certain you're going to keep him, do you want him to run a draft? Like it's not that he would purposely sabotage it, but it's like if you don't trust him enough to run this draft, why is he running the? Like there's just that's another one that occurred to me after your question because your question was very, very fair, and the way he reacted was almost like I don't know if he's been asked this, but he's thought about it.
Yeah, like you can't question my commitment to doing the right thing right now, regardless of my. And I understand that.
It's really not the point.
I didn't ask it as to insult him. Like, are you, just with your feet up behind the desk, like, but
right.
But just fundamentally, he has a 1 year deal, 1 year left, and his job requires him to make long-term decisions, and it's like there's kind of a competing interest there,
Absolutely. And what we got in, I think at the end we snuck in defensive line question, perhaps an offensive line question, and a Jordan Mason question.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what happens when you don't do a press conference right after free agency opens.
But that's interesting. Is like they've had this really good offseason in terms of they've dressed. We talked about last week. I mean, they just really addressed a lot of their needs, and those things got overshadowed yesterday because of the Rodgers talk and the contract.
I was going to say Aaron Rodgers. I mean, when you're talking about a quarterback of that much repute, it's hard to like be like,
can't.
oh, okay, thanks for the answer. Now let's talk about Jordan Mason.
The one answer. Yeah, we're not going to ask just one question. Right?
Yeah. The last thing from me, I will say this. I am gauging from his responses, which by the way went out of his way not to insult Rodgers. I'm not sure he's on board with it. Are you? It felt like he was very, pushing it towards O'Connell, making it very clear that it was an honor for him to be involved. I don't know that I heard a guy who was on board with it. But to your point, if O'Connell is, it don't matter if Kwesi's on board with it.
Yeah, I don't have that sense. Now, I think he's, they've put a lot of planning into a lot of thought into their plan. Like, okay, we're going to get a bridge quarterback, and then we're going to draft JJ, and JJ's,
yes.
The injury messed it up, for a year. Whether he would have played or not, we don't know. But then, okay, now we're going to turn it over to JJ. So this deviates from the plan. Now, would he be okay with that? I don't know.
But he was very proud of that plan when he brought it up at OTAs last year.
Yeah,
and went through it. He was very proud of like how they had orchestrated that plan, and I could easily see him being more of a person to want to execute the plan as written, as opposed to Kevin.
Yeah, and so I didn't get the same vibe as you did, but it's not to say your vibe's wrong. I mean, it's probably, but I think it was clear that he talked a lot about Kevin's relationship with him to make it known that, hey, this is,
I barely knew the guy.
I
don't know him. I got an autograph. It's great.
That's right. So
it's on eBay.
So O'Connell speaks at the owners meeting next Monday. This coming Monday.
Monday or Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be. I'm curious to see how he handles it.
Well, and he can kill it. Like if he wants, he can kill it. He can put an end to it.
Yeah. I don't
think he will, but he can.
I don't think he'll talk as much about as Kwesi did, but he could. Yeah, he absolutely could kill it.
And your dog's exactly right.
I know.
Go with McCarthy. That's what I heard.
That's right. I apologize.
Go with McCarthy. Oh, are you kidding? Stella barks constantly.
That's right.
All right. We're done. You're with me next week, off in a couple weeks. Is that right?
I'm gone next week, and I'll see you the next week after that.
Awesome, Chipper. Awesome.
See you,
Thanks. We'll talk to you. This has been Purple Access.